The world #1 shirt didn't sell out. Nike loaded Aryna Sabalenka's US Open merchandise onto its store this month, right beside the drops for Carlos Alcaraz and Jannik Sinner, and it stayed there, available every size, in no hurry to leave. Days earlier, a 21-year-old ranked far below her posted a single black tee, told her fans what to do, and it was gone by the afternoon. That gap is what the headline runs on, and every piece of it holds up. It's also the smallest thing happening here. The tidy version, bitter champion, snubbed by her own sponsor, falls apart the second you read what Sabalenka actually said in Toronto, where she planted her feet and defended the very dress everyone else was busy mocking. No sulking, no leaked resentment. The real scramble is one floor up, inside a Nike marketing department that just quietly rewired how it decides who fronts a Grand Slam. The fans clocked the shift early, back when they thought they were only roasting a dress. So settle this one in the comments before we go further. If that campaign were yours to run, would you back the ranking or the receipts? Now, back to the dress that started the noise. Early August, Nike unveiled its 2026 US Open kits, and like most of the big apparel houses this year, it dragged the whole hardwood theme onto a tennis court. Mesh, netting, cutouts, basketball everywhere. Adidas had gone the same direction that Fortnite. The whole sport seemed to be cosplaying the NBA. Sabalenka's version arrived in black and red, a dark mesh panel stretched across the front. She posted it on Instagram with a line about it being game time. The internet did not cooperate. Inside hours, the replies curdled into a pylon. People said the mesh looked like a fishing net. They said the brand had run dry on ideas. Some started tagging Wilson, a competitor, and openly asking to be rescued. Her fans have felt shortchanged before too. Back at the French Open, sharp eyes noticed the dress Nike handed the world #1 wasn't even custom. The identical outfit showed up on Oksana Selikmateva, a player ranked nowhere near the top. So the frustration rolling into the US Open had a running start behind it. A champion who keeps getting off-the-rack designs, then gets asked to model them like they were tailored. Now stand the other dress beside it. Eala's US Open kit, another Nike Court Slam design, came in royal blue with white and black trim and mesh running down the sides and back. Same basketball idea, aimed with visible care. Same $140, same website. The reviews forked. Hers drew clean, wearable, sharp. The #1s drew net jokes. One brand, 1 week, one theme, two opposite verdicts, and the rougher one landed on the far more accomplished player. That split is where this stops being a story about fabric. The easy narrative trips right here over Sabalenka's own mouth. A champion quietly seething would go silent or let the resentment leak out sideways in a subtweet. She did the reverse. Pressed on the kid in Toronto, she stood on it. She actually went warmer than that. Said Nike has felt more creative and more fun lately, that she's excited about what the two of them are cooking up for next year, that fashion can't please everyone, and she's at peace with it. Whatever tension exists inside that sponsorship, the posture facing the cameras is loyal, relaxed, a little entertained by all the outrage being mustered on her behalf. That's the tell. The heat in this story isn't radiating off the player, it's coming from the seats. Her own supporters are angrier about her wardrobe than she is, none of which means she's never needled Nike. And this is the piece the loud version gets half right before it mangles the rest. Last November, after the WTA finals in Riyadh, a reporter asked her about the cutout dress and what 2026 would bring. She called that dress a real collaboration, something she'd thrown her own ideas into and been allowed to shape. Then she let slip that next season's kit, unfortunately, wasn't going to be that special, and half joked that maybe everyone should start messaging Nike on Instagram to pile on some pressure, though they should hold out for 2027 because that year was going to be great. That was 9 months ago, aimed at the kit calendar and delivered with a grin. Lift the quote out of Riyadh, scrub off the date, and you can whittle it into proof of a grudge. Leave it planted where it happened, and it's a champion lightly ribbing her sponsor about a thin year. The whole illusion lives in the space between those two readings. Hold on to it, because the market didn't wait for the argument to finish. While everyone fought about fabric, Eala put out something plainer than a dress and got a result a dress couldn't touch: a shirt. An oversized black tee, small floral mark on the front, her name and script across the back, a swoosh, the old "just do it" line under it. She announced it the way she announces most things, giddy and unbothered. Her fans knew precisely what to do. It sold out inside hours. Hold that against what sat gathering dust the same afternoon. According to the tennis writer who first caught it, Nike's other fresh player merchandise stayed fully available that day. The Alcaraz shirt, the Sinner shirt, the Sabalenka shirt, all still in stock, while Eala's evaporated. By midweek, Nike had flipped hers to coming soon, which is retail's polite way of saying they printed too few. The world #1's gear waited around for buyers. The newcomers had to be rushed back into production. That maiden title in Washington had already brought her the biggest payday of her career, and promoters were feeling the same pull the store just confirmed. She'd been filling stadiums through the North American summer, the kind of gate that usually takes a decade to build. You can read that two ways, and honesty means holding both. Maybe it's a spike, one fan base that swarms a single drop and then cools off. Or maybe it's the plain thing it resembles, proof that ranking and revenue have come unglued, that a player outside the top 15 can shift more product than the woman sitting at #1. The spike theory had a nice little life. Then it kept repeating. Eala's crowds trail her across oceans, from North American hardcourts to arenas in Asia, and they spend when they arrive. A market behaves exactly like that, and markets are what sponsors ultimately answer to. So the next question builds itself. If a product page can outvote a rankings page, what exactly is Nike optimizing for? The sharpest read on public feeling isn't in the sales sheet at all. It's in the tone. Disappointed fans grumble. Fans who've decided a brand is failing their favorite get loud, funny, and pitiless. And that's the exact register the Sabalenka reaction hit. We're near the midpoint of this whole thing now, so let the crowd talk for a stretch without anyone smoothing it over. All that anger has a single target, and it's Nike. The fans believe the brand is squandering a generational champion, and they've grabbed the newcomer's success as the stick to beat it with. The comparison edits made it impossible to dodge. Creators started stitching the two reveals frame to frame. Eala's praised, the #1's mocked, one swipe carrying both verdicts at once. For a solid week, you couldn't scroll tennis content without the split screen ambushing you. Here's the quiet damage in it. You can laugh off a roast. A roast that doubles as a business case is far harder to shrug away, because it hands the brand a reason to keep doing the very thing that stung. Every mocking post about the champion's net dress was, in practice, an argument for putting the other woman on the poster. The fans thought they were defending Sabalenka. They were quietly assembling Nike's spreadsheet, and the spreadsheet had already made up its mind. Back the camera off the shirt and the dress, because the thing on the table is bigger than either. For most of modern tennis, the apparel order tracked the rankings almost mechanically. The #1 got the campaign, the custom looks, the ad budget. Everyone else took what was left over. Sabalenka has held the top spot for a long, dominant stretch. A two-time defending US Open champion arriving in New York as the favorite to win it a third year running. Fresh off a season she closed at #1 with 4 titles and a 63-12 record. Under the old rules, that resume alone decides who sells the slam. The shelf never checked the resume. What Nike appears to be weighing instead is reach. How many people in how many places will actually follow, engage, and spend? Measured that way, her ranking barely describes Eala. She's the first Filipina ever to break the world's top 20, the first from her country to win a WTA title, doing it in a region the tennis business spent decades filing under background noise. Washington was no accident either. She knocked out Aryna Sabalenka, then 4-time major champion Naomi Osaka, then world #3 Jessica Pegula to lift the trophy, and she's banked 7 top 10 wins this season, among the highest counts anyone on tour can claim. The climb behind those wins is its own argument. A little over a year ago, Eala sat around 140 in the world, barely known outside her own country. She came up through Rafael Nadal's academy in Mallorca, then broke out as a wild card at Miami in 2025, beating Madison Keys and Iga Swiatek in back-to-back rounds and reaching the semifinal, the first player from the Philippines ever to go that far at a 1,000-level event. She reached a first tour final at Eastbourne and won a smaller title in Guadalajara before most fans had learned to say her name. Her ranking has been sprinting to catch up with her audience ever since, and Washington was the week it finally closed most of the gap. So two institutions have reached the same verdict from opposite ends. The rankings, which measure results, still read Sabalenka. The market, which measures attention, has started reading Eala. Nike doesn't get to choose which of those is true. It only chooses which one to stake the campaign on. It staked it on attention. Whether that was a cold read of the numbers or a brand just surfing a hot streak, we'll learn soon enough. And the place we learn it has a date stamped on it. This isn't Nike going broke or lazy across the board, which is the first excuse people reach for. The brand builds Naomi Osaka her own signature collection sold worldwide, the only one of its kind on the women's roster, and Osaka has openly gushed about what's coming next season. It handed Sabalenka herself a kit she genuinely loved at this year's Australian Open, a Sharapova-inspired design she helped choose the colors for and happily showed off. So the swoosh knows exactly how to make a champion feel like the centerpiece when it decides to. On the biggest American stage of the year, it decided to build that moment around someone ranked outside the top 15, and a brand with that kind of range spent its budget where it did on purpose. That date is August 24th, when the US Open main draw cracks open at Flushing Meadows, and both women step onto the same grounds in the two dresses this entire thing has orbited. Same tournament, same brand, two marketing stories aimed in opposite directions. The crowd votes live, on camera, and neither Nike nor the ranking computer gets to spin the room. First though, one more pass over Sabalenka's own words, because the loud version swung them as a weapon, and the calm version simply explains them. When she said in Riyadh that 2026 wouldn't be special, and joked about fans leaning on Nike, she was doing something quietly shrewd. She was setting expectations for the exact moment we're standing in, a kit cycle she already knew she didn't love, while holding the door open for 2027. In its real setting, the line is a champion getting out ahead of a weak kit cycle months before it dropped. The trouble is that being right about your own bad kit doesn't do a thing to fix it. She flagged the thin year. The thin year showed up on schedule, and the fans reacted precisely as she'd forecast, if anything louder. Foresight and disappointment can wear the same face. Meanwhile, the newcomer, saying nothing strategic whatsoever, let a sold-out product page do all her talking. One woman explained herself into next year. The other let this year's numbers speak, and the numbers were louder. The algorithm noticed the second one. None of this crowns Eala, and pretending it does would be its own dishonesty. She's 21, still learning the tour, still dropping matches she might have taken. She ran into a top 10 wall in Amanda Anisimova at Cincinnati and got pushed to a deciding set before falling. Her climb hasn't been a straight line. She's a work in progress with a great deal left to prove at the slam level, where she has never yet gone deep. Her Grand Slam sheet stays thin. A second round in New York last year, early exits at the other three majors. The runs that built her name all came at the tier below. What sets her apart in this particular story is how she carried herself. She didn't fire back a defensive caption. She didn't answer the noise with more noise. A few days after a painful loss, she simply turned up in the Nike reveal, wore the dress, did the job she was hired for, and let the sellout make her case. When a brand is deciding whose hands to put the keys in, that kind of quiet counts for plenty. Sabalenka's composure is real too. She's absorbed the roast with more grace than her own fan base has managed. But calm from the player losing the campaign and calm from the player winning it register differently, and reading that difference is precisely Nike's job. For a country that watched tennis for decades without once seeing itself in the marketing, the message stitched into that royal blue dress isn't hard to read. Not a courtesy cameo. The lead. That's the part no ranking sheet can hold, and the part that turns a merch story into something people feel in their chest. All of which lands on one unresolved question about who was right. Clear away the fishing net jokes, the sold-out tease, the 9-month-old quote, and what's left is a quiet change to the rules. Nike's move reads less like a snub than like a rewrite. What it altered is the yardstick that picks who leads a campaign, from where you rank to how many people move when you post. By the old measure, Sabalenka wins going away. She's number one, and she earned every week of it. By the new one, the 21-year-old whose shirt evaporated in an afternoon is already out front. Same brand, two rulers, and the brand just showed you which it trusts. That's why the shelf outweighed every press quote. A player can defend a dress, spin a bad review, laugh off a joke. A product page reading sold out while the champion sits fully stocked can't be managed, can't be reframed, can't be press conferenced into something softer. It's the one verdict in this whole affair nobody got to edit. The number one's rack, full. The newcomers, empty and back-ordered. Now, both dresses travel to New York at once, under the same lights, in front of the loudest jury the sport owns. If Eala backs the bet with a deep run, Nike looks like it read the future first. If she bows out early while Sabalenka marches toward a third straight title, the rankings get to say they were right the whole time. The wager is down, the tournament settles it. Everything up to here was just two sides deciding which number to believe. So here's the standing count. The world number one is defending a kit her own fans want burned. The 21-year-old 19-year-old ranked outside the top 15 sold hers out in hours and is fronting the biggest tennis release of the American season. Nike has made its call, and the sport's marketing math may never fully snap back to the way it ran before. For years, the top of the rankings and the front of the campaign were the same seat. This is the summer they came apart. The open question is the one nobody inside Nike will put on the record. Has the ranking permanently stopped deciding who gets the spotlight, or is this a one-summer bet on a hot hand? No one knows yet, and that's the whole reason to keep watching. So tell me below, and actually defend it this time. If that campaign were yours to run, do you ride the number one who earned the top of the sheet, or the newcomer whose fans crash the store every time she blinks? The answer starts arriving August 24th in New York and keeps coming through the fall swing across Asia, the exact region Nike just wagered on. Subscribe, and we'll track every serve of it together.